Anti-violence is not just a catchphrase. It is a movement towards positive behavior change in our young and old. How do we accomplish this? Through empowering and educating everyone to make that conscious decision to end the violence. But what is violence? According to the World Health Organization, violence is the intentional use of physical force or power, threatened or actual, against oneself, another person, or against a group or a community. This action either results in or has a high likelihood of resulting in injury, death, psychological harm, maldevelopment, or deprivation. We all have seen the devastating effects violence can have. We cannot continue to let physical violence, sexual violence, domestic violence, or any type of violence run rampant in our nation. Violence benefits no one. Not me, not you, nor our families, our communities, and definitely not our beautiful island Barbados. So let's all work together, join the movement, and end the violence. For more information on the End the Violence campaign, visit us on Instagram and Facebook at End the Violence. End the Violence campaign, an initiative of the Division of Youth Affairs in the Ministry of Youth, Sports, and Community Empowerment.
Hello, I am Peter Thorne, and welcome to this review of the 5-part live panel discussion series on anti-violence, right here on CBC TV 8, brought to you with the compliments of the Ministry of Youth, Sports, and Community Empowerment in partnership with the Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation, which you can also view on YouTube at the Division of Youth Affairs and on Facebook. This 5-part live panel discussion series was an hour-long program each week, which discussed a series of 5 short films, one every week, which were first premiered at the Olympus Theatres on November 8, 2022, as part of the Ministry of Youth, Sports, and Community Empowerment's Anti-Violence Initiative. The types of violence depicted in the short films were domestic, gender, psychological, sexual, and physical violence. This week we have an esteemed panel to review the entire series. On my right, and he's returning, the Director of Youth Affairs, Mr. Clavison Hunt. A pleasure having you, Mr. Hunt.
Thank you, Peter, and good evening to our viewers.
Thanks for returning. And next to him is another Hunt, but this time Shaquani Hunt. She's the Executive Member of the Barbados Youth Development Council.
Thank you for having me, Peter.
A pleasure. We have back Joyanne Innes, educator, advocate, and trade unionist.
Thank you, Peter.
And a first-timer to the Anti-Violence Initiative, Mr. Christopher Jones of You Report Barbados.
Okay, thank you for having me, Peter. It's a pleasure to be here.
A pleasure having you also. And we'll be back after the break.
Days when I feel lost and directionless, placed under immense pressure to decide what my future will be and what my success will look like.
These emotions aren't unique to me. Many of us suffer with these feelings. It is, however, important that we reach out, talk to someone.
Make connections. Asking for help doesn't make you weak. It's one of the bravest and hardest things you'll ever have to do.
We are not alone.
We're stronger than we think.
This message is brought to you by the Youth Support Hotline, Ministry of Youth, Sports, and Community Empowerment. Call 539-HELP. That's 539-4357.
Welcome back to the Anti-Violence Live Panel Discussion Series review program. Well, we have Mr. Hunt, who has been here, Shaquani, and Joyanne. The first timer, Mr. Jokes. Tell us how you got involved in the program.
Well, good evening, everyone. Well, I'm part of the Report, which is a social group that speaks and focuses on issues towards youth. And it is one of those, it's a social media platform that persons can get involved in terms of areas, for example, crime and violence. persons can speak on that, where we would create polls on the different topics and take that information, and then we would present it to the government.
Wow. So tell us about some of your findings so far.
Well, so far we've created a poll on end the violence. That is the poll that we're working on at this time. And our responders were 127 persons. And so far, 41% male, 59% female. And these are in the ages of 15 to 19%. Sorry, ages 15 to 19. And the percentage of 71%, 20% is ages to 24, 4% 25 to 30. So this shows us the level or the demographic of persons who pays attention to such areas as crime and violence, and who weighs in on these different topics.
Okay, we're going to get back to your findings, but we are going to check our panel to see what they thought of the films and the types of violence depicted. Mr. Hunt?
Yeah. So the ministry would have invested in a range of programs to deal with the whole issue of violence. And these short films was one of the major initiatives which we would have embarked on, because it provided an opportunity for us to have Barbadians focus on themselves as they are mirrored within the various short films. The 5 short films obviously dealt with different aspects of violence. And what we found coming out of the films really was the fact that violence was something that can be perpetrated not only in their homes, but in the communities, but in any aspect. We also found that coming out of the videos also to the issues of power and control, which is one of the dominant themes that runs throughout the whole crime situation within the country. We also found coming out of the films, that the male perpetrators were dominant in those videos. But we also recognized that we were not stereotyping men, because women are also involved in the in violence as well, and in particularly in relation to the area of domestic violence. We saw issues of patriarchy and male dominance, male privilege coming through sharply in those videos. We saw issues of violence, physical violence, right in your face violence, which is something that generally people tend to see. But we also know that violence in itself is also very insidious in the sense that there are a lot of violence that's actually perpetrated that we are not really aware of. And what we wanted to do in the ministry also is to ensure that we have a situation where our young people, because we know young people are both the perpetrators as well as the victims of violence. And we also wanted to show also to that coming out of violence, that there is a pervasive series of negative situations, harm to individuals, harm to the society, and that is some of the things that we wanted to, in those videos, to show that these are areas which we wanted to pay attention on. We want to have Barbadians to place focus on that so that they can reduce the level of violent thoughts within the whole society, and that ultimately that we can reduce violence within the country. So that's my starting out.
Okay, Shakwani, what was your take on it?
Well, I've been on a couple shows here, and what I realized is that a lot of the videos, it showed case where violence was not only, the person wasn't only participating in the violence, but they also learned violence. So they would have came up in a household where they saw somebody attacking somebody, or they saw a family member treating somebody in that way. And even though they know that is not right, in their mind that is the way. So when the director spoke about your mirror image, that is the image that you need to be careful about, what your children are seeing you doing. So if you know that you're behaving in a manner, or you're speaking to your spouse in a negative way, you need to watch yourself, because you do not want to pass down that trauma. You do not want to keep the cycle going. what I realized that these videos did do, it educated persons on what violence could look like, the different types of violence, because a lot of persons don't believe that these exist and it's all in our minds. But because they can now see persons who look like them, who sound like them, they can now identify that, you know what, maybe I am this person in the video, maybe this how person speak to me when I'm at the beach is not appropriate, maybe I should say something. Maybe getting slapped at home, maybe that's not the right way. Maybe I should speak to somebody. So now that they know that this is not the right way, the right path, they also know who to contact, how they can get help. And I found that these videos made it very easy for person to, one, follow the narrative, get help after, and then they also talk to persons about the attacker, because even the attacker needed help as well, because sometimes they don't even understand that they're doing something wrong. They think that this is the right way, this is the passage that they must carry on because this is what they were taught. And I think that this was an excellent initiative. A lots of persons reached out to me telling me that they saw the program, they wanted to know when they're doing it again, where they can see the videos again. Even like communicating how persons can get help. You'll be surprised, even though it is out there, a lot of people cannot find these things online, even though everybody has a cell phone. When you actually need the help, sometimes you don't even have access to a phone. Like we had mentioned a couple of weeks back, when sometimes when the abuser wants to take control of the situation, they take away your access to technology, so your phone, your laptop. So even though we will say it's accessible, it might not be accessible. So having a program running on Channel 8 TV, I think is an excellent initiative, because if they at least have a TV, they can see the program, and the person who's the attacker might not even realize what is going on, and they can get help.
Okay, the opening shots there from Shapwani Hunt. Your thoughts, Giant, in this?
All right, so yes, I do agree that it is an excellent initiative. I remember there was a takeaway. In watching all of them, there were many takeaways, many. What it also highlighted, as was stated, that sometimes you're not aware that you are actually a perpetrator of violence. Say, for instance, the sexual harassment scene. He thought this was cultural, and it is very cultural, especially in the Caribbean. However, not understanding the impact that it would have on the victim, he was unaware till he recognized it was his friend that went through something that was similar. For me, one of the videos spoke about, the one snuffed out, was stating that at the end she was making some comments, one of the actress, and stated that this was in us. And I didn't necessarily agree. It was like, what does she mean that this is in us? And then I did some research, and there is intergenerational trauma. So that's literally passed down from one generation into the next. The thing is that some science have also shown that it is encoded in the DNA. Now, if that is true, we have another thing that we need to look at that was not part of the factor, because we assume that it was always learned behavior. But if you're saying that it can be based on what that trauma has been, if that is embedded in one's DNA, how then do we then modify it to some extent that your persons now learn new behaviors, something that is against their own nature? So I am fascinated, and I'm always also intrigued with this initiative. I think it's an excellent initiative. I think, agreeing with you, that it is shown through some mediums, but it's not necessarily reaching everybody else. What it can do is also be part of the discussion within teachers. So you can start at the primary level and have, as part of your social studies class, you can show these different types of violence that may exist, and therefore depending on the age group, because it has to be age appropriate, and then when they recognize, have the discussion, and therefore start then with the modification of behaviors.
Okay, Giant Hunt, your thoughts on this jokes?
Well, from viewing the videos, actually, I see that a lot of physical violence is going on within the videos, and this can come right back down to using myself as an example within the disabled community. Persons in the community are affected the same way the able-bodied community is also affected. So the videos would help to not only educate persons, but bring awareness to the society. And I think what happens is within our society, the support system is lacking in different areas. That may be one of the challenges that we're having.
Okay, we're going to take a short break and we'll be back in just a moment.
The Ministry of Youth, Sports and Community Empowerment's mentorship program, Project Protege, is once again opening the call for suitable mentors and mentees. The program aims to provide youth with positive role models and support, create a safe space where youth can find encouragement and guidance, connect youth with individuals who can help when they are facing everyday challenges. Do you know a young person between 12 and 17 who could benefit from targeted guidance? Are you a responsible, caring and committed individual over the age of 21? Then Project Protege may be the right fit for you. Consider joining us and become a partner in the positive development of youth here in Barbados. If you or someone you know is interested in joining Project Protege as a mentor or mentee, please contact the ministry at 535-3835 or send an email to ydp@barbados.gov.bb. That's 535-3835 or email ydp@barbados.gov.bb.
Welcome back to the Anti-Violence Live Panel Discussion Series Review Program. I'm going to go to Mr. Joseph, you report Barbados. You were about to give us the specifics on the findings of your poll. What stands out? When was this poll done? When, was it recent? Was it dated? What are the young people saying about the different types of violence?
Well, so far, we've recently done this poll for the campaign specifically. And our reach, the physical is 40%. It's physical violence. And because like discrimination, you would see 9.1%, physical violence 36%. But physical violence is the main issue that stands out among the young persons.
Do people get is it a perception or is it a reality that they are really, violence is really a serious problem in society?
Well, we can see it on a day-to-day basis in a lot of the different spaces we are in. Although it may not show as much for the young persons, but we are, as young persons, we pay attention to what happens around us. So far, you would have, for one of our questions, which said, do you think youth involvement in crime and violence is an urgent issue to address in Barbados? And the number for that was 87% who said yes. 7% said no, not sure, 6%.
How about those with, is social media having an impact? You had a question like that?
So far for social media, these questions are all on social media as well. So we would gather our data from that through social media, WhatsApp, as persons can go onto social media, and once they type a particular, what we would call a trigger word, which would be crime and violence, then the questions would populate and they can answer, and we gather the information.
But I'm asking if the impact of social media,
Cyberbullying.
is that negatively or positively impacting people?
Well, social media, that is negative because cyberbullying is at large, but not many persons may want to speak on it. Because we know that as a young persons, our peers, how they may judge us.
And being behind the screen is easy to feel that you are in power.
Exactly.
You can control the situation, especially when you have a fake name,
And you're
you
not
don't have
being
a
seen
picture. Exactly. It gives you
in
the power
physical
to
form.
bully somebody else.
And then you also have a situation in Barbados where if anything happens now, especially
The first thing goes on social media.
goes on social media. Is this
Or
impacting
WhatsApp.
the youth or the wider population? Were you able to determine or ascertain that?
Well, from our numbers here, we weren't able to get a definite on that. But me specifically, I can see it as, for example, let's use if someone was gunned down. The first thing that you may see populate in your WhatsApp is a video before it gets to the media. So it then can affect the individual's family because it goes around and we don't know how how that may affect them.
Oh, yeah. Sure. I want to hear what the other panelists think
So
about these
let me play the
findings.
devil's advocate. Before, these things would have been occurring. However, it was not captured as swiftly on social media because we would have had violence in schools, etc. From the time they're going to school, there was a lot of fighting. There was a lot of domestic violence within the community as well, but it was never captured via social media because that platform was not available. So my question is it more prevalent now, or is just that we're seeing it now?
No, well, social media is actually allowing us to see it more. Because as you said, it was out there before. But with the WhatsApp, the Facebook, the Instagram, persons having their phone taking videos of everything and uploading it, that allows us to see it more than often, and it's even all over the world.
I would say yes and no. Mainly because I find a lot of persons in this generation, they have a lot of difficulty channeling their anger. They don't know how to control themselves. They don't know how to control their mouth or their behavior. So sometimes something that doesn't need to be escalated, they escalate it without even considering the consequences. Like I am in a course and one of my classmates mentioned that a student in his class said he's not afraid to go to jail. He was only first round. Time he comes out, he can still be young, so he ready. So imagine they have issues.
So rationalize.
So in his mind, they're trying to help the generation. This new generation coming into school, a first farmer. This is his mentality already. What is he supposed to do with that?
Well,
How
you see,
is he supposed to navigate
that
that?
may also come from these spaces that he might have been in.
Exactly.
And he's been in that
it's
community
not
to persons who
only-
might have been in jail or something like that.
It is not only it's not only teachers, the parents have to jump in, and sometimes the parents are the problem.
But I think it starts from the parents.
Yeah, but if the parents are the problem, some people who are the problem don't even know they're the problem, so they don't know how to fix it.
But therefore, that means that for educators, for Ministry of Education, Ministry of Youth, we have to then create safe spaces within the environment, meaning even at work. Because if a person is experiencing domestic violence at home, they come into the workplace, it may manifest itself in different ways. And therefore, but is there a safe space? Because Barbados, our culture is that whatever information is given to you in confidence goes through the adults. So people are not very trusting. So therefore, where are those safe spaces that allow persons, when they're going through this level of violence, that they can go within the schools, within the work, within the health system? Where are they going?
Let's go to our lead man on
But I'll be able to ask.
Mr. Hunt.
I just want to go back a little bit, just rewind a little bit to the stats that Chris actually provided. But first of all, to thank the report for doing the work to provide us with some empirical data in relation to that. Right. And obviously, the work is not complete, so we are still waiting because 121 is still a small number when you look at the youth demographic. But the fact that the majority of people said that visual, the whole thing with physical violence was not surprising to me really, because it is more visual, yeah? And the other thing also too, and I think that's one of the reasons why we presented the different sides, the different facets of domestic of violence in our films, because people see the visual, but those other subtle ones like discrimination and so on, domestic violence, which is really a hidden kinds of problem, those are the ones that we don't pay much attention to, even though they are serious and severe, but people don't necessarily focus their mind on that. So when you talk about cyberbullying, for example, this is something that's occurring outside of a space that is not where you are close to the person. So I think those are some of the reasons why you're going to get that type of information. But what I think I wanted to say also too, in relation to the videos, is that the instances of violence are so complex that even though we produce 5 discrete videos, that all of those things that we produce could be entwined in one event. So a person, a family, or whatever, can be experiencing all 5 at the same time. And that shows the complexity of the problem and the challenge that we have in addressing domestic violence. But The other point I want to make also too in terms of the statistics is around the measurability. It's easier for us to count up and quantify 10 murders, you know, than 10 instances of discrimination, for example, or 10 instances of intimidation. And that is where the statistics are so available, readily available, which is why you can see a lot of young people probably moving and trending towards the whole point of physical violence as being the most dominant, because that's what we see.
My question is, how do people report it? Where do they report it to? Because sometimes persons say they call the police for assistance, tell them, okay, this is what's going on in the household. The police say, well, they have not hit you or anything like that. So maybe we need to update any laws to protect people for things like this. Because if you want people to ask for help, but when they ask for help, there's not really a system to help them, how do we tackle that?
So again, the devil's advocate.
So persons calling for domestic violence. Police officer turns up. They therefore, decided, okay, are you going to press charges? Yes. Then, right before the person they have decides, you know what, we are going to take you in. Somebody decides, oh no, I changed my mind. No, that I don't really want him. I was just upset. He apologized and it goes. And I'm sure that they're seeing that on a recurring basis, which means that the individual that's going through it obviously is going through another one, financial manipulation, abuse, and therefore feeling that if the spouse or his spouse, because it's both ways, are in that situation, if they're gone, they will no longer have the assistance. But I think what we need to add to that is definitely a counselor into the system, because if a person reported that something had to happen, even if it was nothing, so we need a person to follow up. Maybe a social worker could go and follow up to see if everything is going okay, because if the police have done their part, nothing has happened, nothing came out of it, we need somebody to follow up just in case the person was feared into backing out. And that now I think will help put something in the system where people have something to fall back on just in case they change their mind.
Okay, just so your thoughts, Shaquani. We'll be back with the anti-violence review program in just a moment.
The Youth Support Hotline is here to provide you with the assistance that you need. It is a safe space for those who feel as though they have nowhere to turn and need assistance that may not be readily available. Our trained staff are available to provide you with any support that you may need, any time of day or night. Our lines are open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This support takes the form of qualified psychiatrists and other key mental health and wellness bodies here in Barbados. You don't have to suffer in silence. Any challenge that you may be facing, big or small, we are here to support you. If you or someone you know needs support and are unsure about where to turn, call 539-HELP. That's 539-4357.
This message is brought to you by the Youth Support Hotline, Ministry of Youth, Sports, and Community Empowerment. Call 539-HELP. That's 539-4357.
Welcome back to the Anti-Violence Live Panel Discussion Series. This is the review program. And remember, you can call us at 228-5562 or 228-5563. We'll be only too glad to welcome your calls. 228-5562 or 228-5563. Mr. Hunt.
Yes, sir.
A lot of work has gone down in this initiative.
Yes.
What will be the next step?
Right. Okay. Before we go to the next steps, though, and I think this is all part of the next steps, there was something that was put on the table in our initial introductions, which goes to the heart of the whole challenge of how do you treat to this problem. And both Shaquani talked about treating crime and violence as learned behavior, which we know it is. And Joanne introduced something that was even more interesting when she talked about the concept of things being in person's DNA, which means it is almost as though people are predisposed to committing crime. And I mean, this is a very interesting concept, which is something that I think that we have to discuss, because it is only when we understand what are the root causes for persons involved in different aspects of the violence. Because note, there are different types of violence, and all have, in some instances, different root causes, although there are a lot of commonalities in relation to all types of violence, right? And some of it has to go back to the thinking, what your thoughts are, which is where our program is geared to. How do we get people to unlearn behavior? How do we impact thinking to have people thinking positive thoughts rather than negative thoughts? So that when you act out behavior, that you're acting out behavior which is positive rather than behavior that is geared towards negative outcomes.
All right, just hold your thoughts, Mr. Hunt. We have someone on the line, so we're going to take that call and then return to you. Good afternoon. How can we help?
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
You're talking about the ending the violence.
Yes, please.
Well, the people ain't doing nothing about it, so they're going to find they're killing one another. And the best people that I will have is the defense force. They're doing the work. I prefer hire them. So you say about that?
Very interesting call.
Thank you,
Very
Daniel.
interesting
Okay.
comments.
Bye-bye.
And I think I like the concept, the call, because the call really goes to some of the stuff that I wanted to say today, which may be a little bit controversial. Because one of the things that I am seeing based on experience working with persons who have been involved in batterers and veterans intervention programs and things like that, is for us to look at whether we do not need to look to shift our thinkings in some way from that judicial approach in some instances towards a more rehabilitative, a more program which is based on interventions, psychoeducational interventions. And I say this also too because one of the things, especially when we deal with domestic violence, for example, is that if we imprison someone having done the act, and there is no intervention provided while the person is in prison or whatever, then when the person comes out, they come out just as they were in. And they are more prone to commit the act again than if we do an intervention where we expose persons to the challenge, the causes why they have been involved in domestic violence in the first place. And as we said, it is a learned behavior in a lot of cases. I mean, we've seen the video where persons say, look, okay, I got this from my father. I saw them do this. And therefore, they continue to do it. If we do not provide that intervention, then the person will continue to behave because they, as we say in Barbados, they know no better. But what we have to do in relation to the intervention is to cause them to reflect on their behavior and to see that there are alternative ways of being able to settle and resolve conflict. So that is just my intervention, ladies and gentlemen, which I know may be a little bit controversial, but I am saying that based on all the experience that I have, that this is an approach I think that we should also consider rather than taking strictly about lock up and throw away the key.
I do agree that I don't think that it should just be locked up and throw away the key because I think that honestly that's a waste of government resources. We could better utilize our resources if we put them in a facility where they could be rehabilitated because look, we got the old Glendairy building. It is not being occupied right now. If we have persons with less serious offenses, we can possibly renovate that facility and put programs in there, make it an outpatient system where persons could come on a morning, leave on the evening, whatever is the best technique to do it, but also have persons who can counsel, persons who can train, videos like these so persons can come in and watch these seminars and they can actually see, okay, maybe this is me, because some persons, as we said before, don't even recognize that they're the problem. They think that everybody else is the problem and only them doing the right thing. So we need to not only not lock them up, but we also have to have a facility to facilitate this rehabilitation, because if we can just say we're going to go into the home, sometimes the households does not have the room for that. We have households that maybe have 10 people in it, 3 rooms where you're going to do the private session with them. You're going to do a group session. So yes, that is a brilliant idea, but we need to help the government. I think I like
the way that Chris has approached this, because I'm very data driven. So therefore, I really want to see where it is, how much it is. He's doing it with his interest group. I want to know exactly, and he stated that they're seeing more, for them is more physical violence, but as Cleaveston would have stated, it's because the other ones are not measurable. We can't, that data is not necessarily coming in. The thing,
Actual within the physical violence.
Everything physical violence.
but here's the other part. The assumption, even when I saw the videos, that's why I had asked the question, was it intentionally done in a particular area, especially snuffed out? The assumption is, like what the caller would have stated, would have given the idea that, you have punitive measures in place in order to address all of this level of deviance. And the assumption is within that is on one social status, one economic, socio-economic background. That's not true. It is going across. But we are not privy to the ones that may be in a different bracket. Yes. But it must be existing up there as well. So that's why I'm looking now to see, are we getting a true reflection of what is going on within the society? What do we need to do to get all of that data and then determine where or how best that we are going to manage this?
Do you believe, given what Mr. Hunt has posited about locking up and throwing away the key, and that there are no interventionist programs after the person is incarcerated, etc., don't you believe that perhaps obviously there should be collaboration between the Ministry of Youth, Ministry of Education, etc., but that we should perhaps look to be proactive and take this issue into the schools from at the primary level?
I agree.
I do agree.
We have to, because if we don't, we're going to have a generation of children who don't want to listen to nothing you say.
But
they can't listen to nothing you say because they can't even find the time to quiet down.
But that's not their era. We were being coming through it. If you speak to your parents in a certain manner, back slap. I mean, I watch this, and that would be now deemed as violence. That would be now. So you had to be respectful. You would walk the road and you said something inappropriate to an elderly person. That person will hold you and whoop you. That is now so therefore we need to also understand the language itself. What are we deeming as violence? I need that very clear. What do we deem as discipline? I need that very clear. And where is the line? Because if you're saying yes to cut up a child's skin, and yes, that is brutal. But if you're saying to me that I give you a couple slaps, to let you know this is inappropriate behavior after warning, is that inappropriate? So I think
we need to do a wider sensitization with the public, maybe a consultation forum where persons can ask questions like this. Because if you are educated in this field and you are trying to decide where the line is, think about the regular persons who does not have the experience, who does not have the education background in the field. How do they decide what is violence and what is acceptable?
But teachers are not necessarily adequately trained in the area of this particular area of psychology and social work. That is not necessarily what we are employed to do. So therefore, do we need additional social workers in place?
Definitely.
And if we do that, what is the cost? Is there a cost? Is there an economic factor
that is saving a generation?
Even to deal with violence? Is there an economic factor?
Okay, that's all your thoughts are. We are going to take a short break and we'll be back in just a moment.
Barbados, are you ready to celebrate the outstanding youth in our nation? It's time to honor those who make a real difference, those who are shaping our future. Get ready for the National Youth Awards. Save the date for the National Youth Awards, May 26, 2024 at the Frank Collymore Hall. But here's the best part. Nominations are now open. You can nominate those outstanding individuals who deserve to be recognized for their contributions. So how to nominate, you ask? Simply visit us at our Facebook page at Division of Youth Affairs and click on the link provided under the post section to access the nomination form. Alternatively, you can go to our Instagram page at DivYouth246 and click on the link provided in the bio. Once you have accessed the form, fill it out in its entirety and press Submit. If you prefer a physical form, then select your preferred location from the list provided. You can find collection points listed on our social media pages. The nomination deadline is May 13th, 2024. So spread the word to everyone you know, your friends, family, neighbors, and workmates. Let's make this year's National Youth Awards the biggest and brightest celebration ever. Nominate now to be a part of celebrating excellence in our youth.
Welcome back to this End the Violence live panel discussion series review program. And remember, you can call us at 228-5562 or 228-5563. We'll be only too happy to welcome your calls. Before the break, Mr. Hunt, you were about to make a point.
Oh, yeah. And I just want to say that I hope, I seem to open a little can of worms on the panel, and I am happy that I did, because I want us, and I want all of us to be focused in terms of interventions. And I wanted to say that what I was saying, I'm promoting early intervention. We don't want people to get to the stage where they're shooting people so that you have to call in the defense force and things like that to, you know, even though that may be an inappropriate way for us to deal with the issue. But, and I must also say too, that what I was exposing is not something that I have not seen happen. So I know it's possible for us to look at different ways in which we treat to crime and crime prevention to ensure that people are not getting caught back in the cycle. Because if you look at what happens in prisons, for example, if you do any surveys in there, you will realize that there's a high rate of recidivism. People go into prison, they come out, they go back, they come out, they go back in, because there is in a lot of cases no change that has gone on that will move that person from the conditions, the social conditions in which they are existing. And that is what I'm saying, that as part of that overall intervention, as Shaquani was saying, that we got social work, we got counselor in there, so that people can really understand the conditions in which people are existing and which drive them towards crime. I mean, if you want talk theory, you can talk about, you know, differential association, all that, where people who live in the similar conditions. If you live in a situation where you see crime around you all the time, you're prone to commit crimes.
One person come out fine, next person come out being a criminal.
Exactly.
But we can say maybe we need to look at different countries and see how they tackle the issues in their prisons, because I know Switzerland, they have a very interesting system in one of their prisons where they basically rehabilitate you in prison. So you're in a house setting, but in a prison. You can't leave, but they retrain you. You do rehabilitation so that when you go back out into society, you know how to behave, you know how to act, and you are in a position where you can help yourself and help others. So it's not only just being in a cell, but they help you navigate being a person or existing outside the walls of a prison. So maybe we need to reconstruct how we operate inside the prison so that when they come back out, we can reduce repeat offenders.
Well, not only Switzerland, there are many progressive countries in the world where actually, as a prisoner, you can come out and you can work on weekends. You can, and then you can also go home on weekends and then you return to prison during the week. So when you come out, you are a reformed person. You are not the same person that went in. But if we are going to take this Eurocentric approach or this Western approach and we run with it, I believe we are imprisoning ourselves.
Basically, we're creating a bigger problem by keeping them as the problem.
Yeah, correct.
But is it beneficial to do it this way as opposed to your other way?
Yeah, but what I'm saying, Peter, is and what we are doing in the programs within the ministry is that we are trying to ensure that people don't get to that stage where they have to go to prison. So we're talking about early investments into the lives of young people, and we are talking about having sustained programs, bringing young people who are on the blocks. I mean, we have our block intervention programs, for example, where we work with young people who are on the blocks and trying to move them away from areas, as I talk about, it's whole differential association. If you're associating with
your construction gateway program, which is really excellent.
Yes.
But I find some of your programs need more push, more awareness, because I found out about it from inside of my salon. And I was able to share that information to so much other people. People don't know that there are free programs where people could go and get trained in construction. So imagine you don't have to pay any money, but you could go and learn and come back out with a skill and then possibly get a job. And opportunities like that, we need to push more, because that may be the difference between somebody going to rob a person or not.
I think, but Ministry, they have a lot of programs,
But the problem
initiatives
is that
running,
the
and
programs
they're.
are not getting to some of the people.
I'm not sure.
Mr. Hunt, we have one now going with the hotline.
Yeah, the National Youth Hotline. We have a mentorship program. The National Mentorship Program is one that we do. Again, and a number of the programs that we do within the ministry are really pro-social programs that drive young people away from being involved in crime and violence. So we want to move young people away from those situations where they are at risk, or where the risk factors are greater than those pro-social factors that will push them over on the other side. So those are the types of programming that we have. We have a national sports training program, for example, where all over the island young people can engage in a number of sporting disciplines in which they can hone their skills. We have our national summer camp program where we treat the young people between age 4 to 15. And again, that is a continuous investment in social development programs and programming within those summer camps that will assist our young people at that early stage. As I said, those early investments, because you want when children reach age 15 and 16, which is the most problematic stage of their development, that they have those kinds of inputs that strengthens them to be able to make good, solid decisions for themselves and for their future.
Definitely. I can say that these programs are definitely helping a lot of young people, but the problem is sometimes is that after the programs, they don't have anywhere to go. I think that we need to get behind that BDF program, that sports program they had. That was excellent for dealing with the persons who are over 16 to about 25, I think, or 30, where if you're good at sports and you're just home, you could go into the BDF, and then that transition to persons actually joining the BDF after, because they're now become accustomed to this type of training, and they believe that, no, this is something for them. This is their future. This is how they got out of the problem. So programs like that, I think we may need to relook at them to start them back, because they saved a lot of people. I know people who were in them who were saved.
I want to ask Mr. Hunt again quickly. Chris, you can come into when you're ready, but the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Community Empowerment, they have a digital program now in prisons.
Yes.
Reaching out, and we also have a project to expand on.
Right. I think what we're trying to do also in relation to the prisons is the same concept that we talked about. How do we help persons to transition from prison into the communities? And one of the things that we said that within the prison, for example, there are people who have a lot of skills. They are very good carpenters, masons, mechanics, and stuff like that. But some people struggle when they come out of prison to find work.
Yeah, because nobody wants to hire you.
Nobody wants to hire them, right?
The police certificate too.
Right. And one of the things that we said that we also would do is to go in with our youth entrepreneurship scheme, for example. Teach them the skills of management. Teach them to be entrepreneurs so that when they come out, they can own their own businesses. So that rather than having to go to Peter to ask Peter for a chance, they come out, they set up their own business, and they use the skills to be able to sell their services to the public.
But the society, though, is not a forgiving society, because once the person has been incarcerated, we seem to have a blanket approach that we just don't forgive them.
I'm glad you mentioned that about the regarding to prison, because with our statistics, we would have received feedback on solutions, some of the solutions as well. So some who have been speakers who have been to prison, like what you said, persons now who go into entrepreneurship. They can become, some of the prisoners can become speakers to our youth within our community centers, have a community-oriented program, to guide them in the right path and let them know the life from prison and after, so that it would show them it's not easy.
So why not before they even hit prison? Before they hit prison, can't we have those programs running within the school itself? Because when children come into, I know that we're doing education reform, and we're looking at where children now may not be academic, but they may have aptitude or towards a specific area, particular skill. Therefore, I think it should be probably mandatory that every child, before they leave secondary school, and secondary school, the age group, children develop at different stages. And you will find that a child will probably leave at 16 years old or not seem to be coping at 16 years old. And then that same young adult at 18, 19 years old seem to blossom all of a sudden because they develop at different stages. So maybe we need to also increase the age of leaving school. And whilst you're in school, have the programs running, the apprenticeship programs running within the school, place children within students within particular areas. If you find out that they're having a certain attitude towards not wanting to be part, or they're influenced by their peers, that's where your counseling would come in at a more deep dive kind of level to find out why they are not in any way situated within a program itself. So I think it can start before school, before they hit prison, and therefore, but then again, as I'm saying, there's always an economic cost to all of this, and therefore we need to have that discussion as well. What does this mean when we look to implement certain programs?
But they do have some programs, because I know that you can do CBQs, which are skill-based qualifications. So even if you don't want to do academic qualification, this is a qualification that is continuous assessment. So even when you leave school, you can continuously be assessed in the area.
Can I use it when I go and therefore I want to go for a job?
Yes, because it is a Caribbean regional qualification. It is recognized not only at secondary school. What I can say is that we do have to do some regularization of it in terms of going to BCC, but they are working on it, because I do have a CVQ qualification in cosmetology, and I got it let me see, in 2014 or so. And by going through that program, I was able to compete in world skills. So it gives young persons opportunities not only to compete here in Barbados, but also regionally. We have that program. I remember I spoke at Granley Adams, and they have a program where persons do internships. So students identify what skill area they want to go into, and they reach out to a company or business, and they ask them if they could come in and do like a day release. So they could come in and see what the job is like and see if this is the pathway for them. So maybe more schools need to implement situations or scenarios like this to help students identify, well, this is the area I want to be because I went and I saw how they do it, and this is how I want to go forward in choosing my subjects.
Yeah, so let me just jump in also, because to sort of pick up on what you're saying, Shaquani, and also Jayan, within the ministry we offer what we call a Next Step Training Initiative, and that we deal with providing second chance opportunities for people who would, quote unquote, as you say, fall through the cracks. But those persons who would not perhaps done well at school for whatever reason, because, you know, sometimes people get challenges that cause them to not perform as well as we hope. And we have the Next Step Training Initiative, which we send work with the Community College, Samuel Jackman Prescott Institute, the TVET, to provide a number of training opportunities for these young people. In addition, we also have our Pathways program, which is a mentorship and job placement program. And young people come into this program as well, and we provide the training opportunities for them, and then we place them in various places of employment. I mean, our rate for placements is in the high 80s, all right? So we have been very successful in terms of working with partners within the hospitality industry and so on to be able to provide these young people with opportunities. Young people who would normally not get their foot into the door. And that's what we provide for them. And of course, it is for them to then hold on to the opportunity that's provided once the opportunity continues. So as you were saying, Shaquani, there are a number of programs that we have in the ministry, and they're all oversubscribed. So we attempt,
I see, as soon as it goes on, I see it's full.
We attempt not only those, but we look also towards the social development parts of that, because we look at all aspects of the young person. And we subscribe to, you know, what we call our Youth Development Index, where we look and try to measure, but not try to, and measure the progress that we are making, our young people are making here within the country. And you raised the question about what happens after. And we also do our tracer studies. So once having completed the course, because it's important that we know that the training is actually making sense and that people are actually benefiting. And therefore, after 2 years, we try to track all of these young people to see exactly whether they have made progress in the area in which they have been trained, or whether they have gone on to other areas of work. So, like I said, the program that we offer in the ministry is very varied, is very dynamic, is very exciting. Peter talked about the digital media for those persons who want to do, those courses that are more, 20, is it 21st or 22nd century? No, whatever. But to move young people into the digital era. Maybe we're talking about AI and all of that, now robotics and all of those. So we are on the cutting edge of implementing those types of courses to do that. And I mean, I'm looking at Chris, and I said we also did a course for persons with disability in digital media as well, because we found that that was an area that fit well for them. And well, one of the areas, and we did a course where persons who were deaf were able to produce videos.
Yes, I remember that.
Right, public service videos for deaf persons, right?
Clifford, can I ask you a question then? So students or persons that would be engaged in some level of deviance within the society, do you have access to that group? Are they recommended then to Ministry of Youth so that then they will be able to own a skill?
Yeah, we do have access to things. We work closely with the probation department, so persons who may be in the criminal justice system are able to access the courses that we have. People who are at risk. I mean, we don't want you to wait till someone is in the criminal justice system. I remember we worked also too with the transition unit, having a transition program, so that those kids who were in secondary school who were displaying some types of behaviors that may lead to deviance, that we could work with those earlies and place them in various programs in which we are doing within the ministry.
Okay.
So, I mean, the platform is there for all of our young people, because what we also say is that I mean, we not only look at those that are at risk, because the vast majority of our young people are people who are not at risk. But through our mainstreaming program, we want to give them opportunities too. And we don't want all of our resources to be spent only on those persons. That percentage that are at risk.
I just want your thoughts, Mr. Hunt. I believe we have a call on the line.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Don't mind they're disgusting. If you see them school days of the morning when they're going to school time, and the city talk about, you hear how ridiculous it is. And the big people cannot speak to them to give them words, oh Lord, you have to shut them up. You can't even take a Panadol to cool that headache. It's something how them just carry on. But they don't want, I want to send them to the big dogs. I will get a big place for build for them, or they have it already. And if they give them 3 months, 4 months, I think I let us live in there and learn them the same thing that Mr. Cleveland is there talking. But going to this learning thing and going back home, I'm ready to go where they're going again, go back where they was. They continue with the same thing. They have to stay for every country, some place for them to stay there and pick a thing, take a thing. Not taking it now and then go and then do the same thing all over again. I will send them to the big jail. I will get a place I will send them up by the French force and let us train them at their 3 or 4 months.
Okay.
Get time.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your call. Before we wrap up, Director Hunt, I want to ask you, what is the next step in this whole end violence initiative?
Okay, the next step really, we want to continue our discussions. Obviously, we want to take these discussions into our communities and into our schools. We have a number of learning products, and we have a distinguished panel who we want to invite to come with us as we go into our communities to have these discussions, because as we said, we want to have Barbadians discuss the whole issue of violence, but not only from the point of view of the fact that it's happening, but also as to what we can do. And for us all, as the whole society kind of approach, this is my wrap-up, I have to say, to ensure that at the end of it, that we are in a situation where our young people who are, as we said, the victims and the perpetrators of crime in the country, that they are in a situation where we all can say that we want to end the violence. Now, and just finally, based on what the lady was saying, I just want to address what the lady was calling because I think it's important.
Yes.
One of the challenges that we have in practice is, as she's saying, you take the person out of the situation, you fix them, and then you put them back in the same dysfunctional
But she said
environment.
not to put them back in.
Okay.
She said
All right.
leave them, let it basically
Right.
pay, and we retransition them into maybe a year later.
Okay, your final thoughts, Shakwani?
My final thoughts, I would say, is that I am looking forward to continue to work with the Ministry of Youth in helping them end the violence.
Your final thoughts, Jayan Hunt?
Yes,
Jayan Innes.
Yes, for me, I really would like to see that all the different areas, all the different stakeholders collect the data, collate that data, so then we could see exactly where it is that we need to place our resources.
Your final thoughts, Mr. Christopher Jones of You Report Barbados.
Well, for me, I believe in collaboration. And at a level where all agencies come together and working on a productive strategy that can work for the parents and the youth as well.
Thank you very much. This week you were viewing the final review program of a live 5-part panel discussion series on anti-violence here on CBC TV 8, brought to you with the compliments of the Ministry of Youth, Sports and Community Empowerment in partnership with CBC. And I'd like to thank our esteemed panel, and I'd like to thank you for joining us over the several past weeks. I'd also like to thank our producer, Wanda Reed Beckles. Today, she was replaced by Ramat John Pierre. I'd like to thank our director, Dawn Greenwich, our floor and sound crew, Everson Brown, Royal Ford, Peter Bino, Michael Sobers, Philip Hines, our makeup artist, Joanne Jones. It has been a humbling but thoroughly enjoyable experience. Thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you in the near future.